Good evening, chaps. Today we will be discussing popular culture. Now, what exactly is popular culture? Popular culture, based on the tastes of ordinary people, not the educated elite. Popular culture is the ideas, perspectives, attitudes, images and other phenomena that are within the mainstream of a given culture. It is heavily influenced by mass media, the collection of ideas that spread throughout the everyday lives of the society. The most common pop culture categories are movies, TV, sport, news, politics, fashion, technology and slang. Popular culture is often viewed as trivial and dumbed down in order to find acceptance throughout the mainstream. As a result, it comes under heavy criticism from various non-mainstream sources, most notably religious groups and countercultural groups, whom deem it superficial, consumerist, corrupt. Popular culture can sometimes be referred to as low culture. Low culture is a derogatory term for some forms of popular culture that have mass appeal. Its contrast is high culture. It's been said by cultural theorists that high culture and low culture are both subcultures. Today, low culture would include things like takeaway meals, magazines, best-selling books and movies. A fellow colleague called Herbert J. Gans wrote a book called Popular Culture and High Culture. Herbert gives a definition of how to identify and create low culture. Low culture is content to depict traditional working class values, winning out over the temptation to give into conflicting impulses and behaviour patterns. When applying that lens to mass media, it often includes shows that do not go too deeply into abstract ideas or that do not address head-on contemporary social issues. Herbert Gans states in his book that the different classes of culture are linked correspondingly to socio-economic and educational classes. For any given socio-economic class, there is a culture for that class. Let's look at popular culture and art, otherwise known as pop art. Pop art is an art movement that emerged in the mid-1950s in Britain and later in that decade in the United States. Pop art presented a challenge to traditions of fine art by including imagery from popular culture, such as advertising, news, magazines. In pop art, material is sometimes visually removed from its known context. It's isolated and combined with unrelated material. The concept of pop art refers not so much to the art itself as to the attitudes that led to it. Let's look at some examples of popular culture and artwork. Drowning Girl is a painting by Roy Lichtenstein in 1963. Utilising the conventions of comic book art, a thought bubble conveys the thoughts of the figure. Drowning Girl has been described as a masterpiece of melodrama and is one of the artist's earliest images depicting women in tragic situations, a theme to which he often returned to in the mid-1960s. Campbell's Soup Cans is a work of art produced in 1962 by Andy Warhol. It consists of 32 canvases, each of a painting of a Campbell's soup can, one of each of the canned soup varieties the company offered at the time. The individual paintings were produced by a printmaking method. Campbell's soup can's reliance on themes from popular culture helped to usher in pop art as a major art movement in the United States. Richard Hamilton's collage of 1956. Just what is it that makes today's homes so different, so appealing? Is the ultimate catalogue of pop art imagery using comics, newspapers, advertising, cars, food, packaging, appliances, celebrity, the space age, television and the movies. British pop art was started by some young British artists in the 1950s who grew up with the wartime austerity of ration books and utility design. They viewed the seductive imagery of American popular culture and its consumerist lifestyle with a romantic sense of irony and a little bit of envy. They saw America as being the land of the free, free from the crippling conventions of a class-ridden establishment that could suffocate the culture they envisaged. They wanted a more inclusive, youthful culture that embraced the social influence of mass media and mass production. Pop art became their mode of expression in this search for change, and its language was adapted from Dada collages and assemblages. The Dadaists had created irrational combinations of random images to provoke a reaction from the establishment of the day. Pop art artists adopted a similar visual technique, but focused their attention on the mass imagery of popular culture, which they waved as a challenge in the face of the establishment. So now it's your time to create your own masterpiece. Perhaps you could get out all your trashy magazines and cut them up and display them in such a way that communicates how you feel about what you are concerned for. Perhaps your country doesn't need a new flag, or perhaps you're concerned about the environmental impact of the 21st century. Or you could create a work inspired by the drowning girl and paint a picture asking, will I ever be as pretty as Kim Kardashian? Well, cheerio chaps, see you next time.